All right, what's up, everybody? Thank you all for being here for the latest episode of Secret Sessions, issue number 3. Yeah, it's a comic book theme. Who knows? We may change it later. But as always, I got my co-host, my bar. Is it Barbadian? How do you say your people like? Because we say Americans. How do you say for like Barbadian or
Barbadian, or locals call us Bajans. We say Bajans or Barbadians.
uh,
Yeah,
I'll just go with Bajans. That sounds better. Sounds I don't know ethnic.
yeah.
Sounds island urban. And then we have a special guest on our show today, Adam Downing. He is the
Ooh,
creator or writer and creator of Super Dangerous. Righty.
shit.
Yeah, Adam, tell us a little bit about yourself, introductions and all that fun stuff, where the ladies can meet up with you.
Yeah, right. Uh, I'm a dude from Baltimore. No, I'm Adam. I'm from Baltimore, financial statement auditor by day, comic book publisher by night. Writer, marketer, whatever auxiliary task needs to be done. You know what I mean? Is my job position. But yeah, I'm a dude who writes comics, who plays games, watches a little too much anime, and
Yeah, same here.
you know what I mean.
Same here. I'm actually wearing an anime shirt for an anime that I don't really watch anymore.
Is it
Dragon
Piccolo and
Ball
the
Z.
android? What's his face?
Yeah, it's
Yeah, yeah, the androids.
yeah. So let me fix that. All
One of
right.
which was
As
voiced by Zeno Robinson, if I'm not mistaken. The guy who
I don't
does
even know
Hawks.
who.
It's like a black voice actor. I think his name's Zeno. I think Robinson, and it's Zeno something, and he voices Hawks from My Hero Academia, and he voiced one of those androids from the superhero movie.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, he's doing something.
Um. So later on in the show, as you guys know, we go into comics. We'll take it page by page. Anything interesting, it's free but respectful. Discourse dialogue. If we like something, we say we like it. If we dislike it, we say we dislike it. We ain't trying to be on here like, man, fuck this shit, yada yada yada. It's a piece of shit book. No, we're not trying to do all that. But honest discourse. But before we get to, before we get to that, oh man, oh man. Which one of these good ass questions that I want to start off with? This probably won't affect Alan too much, but Adam, maybe you have a perspective on it. In this country, tariffs, how do you think that will affect you and indies as a whole? I mean, it doesn't have to be black indies specific, but indies as a whole, because last time I checked, most comic books were actually printed in Canada. So something like 75 to 80%. So wonder if that would affect you, or are you strictly digital or what?
Yeah, I froze there for a sec.
No, he
Sorry.
ain't. It ain't a sec. He's frozen in time. I'm telling you. You take these, bro. You just put them when you drop your album. Just use each one of these as like the little thumbnail for the singles that you drop.
Oh, you're back.
All
My back.
right.
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah,
Man.
you're
I'm like,
back.
you want me to switch to my phone or?
No, that's
I don't
cool.
know.
If you feel it'll do you better, like I said, hey man, if it'll run better, do that.
Okay, it
I
might be
have
more
no, I
consistent.
haven't. Yeah, I have no issues with that.
All
Yeah.
right, give me 2 seconds.
All right. So for me, the tariffs will still affect me because most of our books are printed in North America, and if I do any shipping, I have to ship through American companies. So it still will affect me, or I have to be cognizant of the costs that it will involve, because when the cost of publishing goes up, even though I'm not doing it, like I'm not there physically, I'm still ordering my books from the States, I'm still distributing in the States, I'm still shipping within the States. So it does affect all of us.
Yeah.
And it
And,
may mean too that I may not ship as many books here. So it may be a case where I print a book, publish a book, and I never really put physical hands on it until it's feasible to send a big set.
Yeah, I know you were telling me like there's a couple of covers for Diary of Stray Dogs that you were saying how you'll never own them, even though it's your intellectual property. But
Yeah.
whatever deal you worked out with your cover artist, those were ones that he came up with so that he could print out copies and sell. And some of them are nice, man. I wish you had a couple that you can slide a brother. But I do appreciate all digital files you've been able to bless me with. And Adam, I want to get your perspective on it, but I do want to say this real quick.
Sure.
For people who say this is my journalistic move, for people who say, "Oh well, you guys, we could just print them in America, we could just build the factories and stuff like that." I look at these people like, y'all dumb as dog shit. Y'all are dumb as dog shit, and here's why. Like a lot of industries in the U.S. haven't had manufacturing here. I mean, I was born in May of 1984. They were shipping a lot of these things overseas. So it's like you have two options. You can, let's just say with comics, you could build a printing press, one that can handle industrial print, but that takes a while. So you're looking at like a year, 6 months to a year, depending on how fast you do it and how profitable you feel it can be. Then it is the other option is you can find an old printing press and then you have to retrofit that. So you're still looking at like 6 months to a year. And then something that a driver, because I work in HVAC, so we have parts delivered to us. A driver told me, he said, "Yeah, you got that part, but here's the other part." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Then you got to get a workforce trained to operate that stuff." And people say these things, but they don't look at the overall ramifications of that. Like, how fast can you get that infrastructure up? And that's across the board. Like, I know people say that, like, just make it here in America. Like, bruh, you have to have a solid infrastructure for that. And for a lot of industries, we've not had that. And even then, the raw materials, like I said, I work in HVAC. In this country, I think Alan, I may have told you this off camera. In order for something to be labeled as made in America, now this was 20 years ago. I don't know if it's been updated. It has to have been made or manufactured, like 70% of it, right, had to have been made here. So even you can still get hit with tariffs if the base components of that object come from overseas, like paper pulp or sheet metal for, like I said, I work in HVAC, for condenser units and stuff like that. So people don't look at the big picture. Adam, I want to get your take on that, like how it affects you. And then working in accounting, you probably see like some numbers. And so, have you seen anything where like costs go up or anything like that? Or maybe that's just not your specific.
Not a ton, because a lot of our clients are more like commercial, like trucking, hauling. We have like some logistics firms and stuff like that, as well as like foundation. Like some some of the more government stuff is kind of up in the air. Like we have a lot of questions because obviously this dumb the administration's doing a bunch of dumb shit and slashing but stuff. But as far as the tariffs, we're not seeing a huge.
Slide a little bit over, man. You're half off camera.
Yeah, sorry about that. As far
that's just you're all good.
Okay, bet. As far as like personally, like with the comic books, I print with Morris Publishing, who they're out of like Kearney, Nebraska. So initially I didn't really expect to see any change, but I'll be honest, the last time when I was fulfilling this past Kickstarter for Super Dangerous #2, and I placed all my orders, and I was on the phone with Tammy, my point of contact with the company, with getting everything straight. She did mention to me, by the way, after this week, prices are going up on just. So I don't know, man. Like, even it could be like a supply issue with them or whatever, but or maybe it's not even like tariffs directly, or it could be just like a broader like economic impact of like everything kind of getting fucked up. But I mean, either way, it is. I guess from what I'm seeing, it kind of increased the prices of my like the people I used to print with. So
yeah, it's a yeah.
Yeah, I was saying that the same thing happened with me. I just finished my Kickstarter, and what they did was a lot of the print options that they had before, they took them off the table. So they kind of reduced some of the sizes. So whereas before they had like 15 different comic book sizes, they kind of went down to 10. They took you could get the collectible printing cards done. They took those off the table. They had more sticker sizes and sticker varieties, and they just kind of did away with it and just went down to like 3 or 4 sizes. So what they're trying to do in some cases is just minimize some of the costs by not having too much variation in the product, so that you try to streamline stuff. So there's a lot of
and I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Let the people know what book is this for, so that I want you to go ahead and plug that so they can go looking for it.
Right. So the last book I did was Neon Ghosts. So I just finished the Kickstarter. We're actually into fulfillment now. So that's kind of how I know that I've noticed the change. So with my first campaign with the Wounded, I did stickers with them. I did collectible cards with them. But no, when I went back, a lot of stuff was not even there. To a point, you kind of was like, am I imagining this? I swear they just had this stuff. But it is a part of the company trying to cut back on wastage, because you can't have too many things, because you're having too much options. You have more chances of making mistakes and that kind of stuff. So you'll find that a lot of the printing companies are simplifying stuff. A lot of the options, like the hollow foil and the chrome covers and that kind of stuff, a lot of stuff has been changed. A lot of prices have gone up for the specialty items and the paper quality. I noticed that the stuff has gone up. So it slowly has increased. And I think it could be the tariffs, or it could even be a little bit before the tariffs.
Yeah. So it's kind of like so when I took economics in high school, it's kind of like what my teacher taught me. Like, they raised the price of gas here for the oil coming in, not for the stuff that's already here, but for what's coming in. And that could be what you're seeing. And then once again, people, like, what you're hearing is that trickle-down effect. So even though it may be printed here, the raw materials could still be an import, could still need to be exported. So there's somewhere where these tariffs are affecting you. Like I work for Train Technologies. We got sent emails months ago, back in like February, March, letting people know of a tariff increase. Like, we have OEM parts, which, for those of you that don't know, OEM stands for Original Equipment Manufactured. Basically, like a Dodge part made by Dodge, manufactured by Dodge, or Mopar, whatever. This is an example. Like, we have motors that are our original parts that are made in Mexico. Shit, you know what they say? Shit rolled downhill. So if the cost goes up for us, it goes up for you. And you are going to start to see options dwindle. Not just for you, but like you said, they got to mitigate costs. The printing company has to mitigate costs for themselves. You can't offer a bunch of things that are just going to sit, because it's just not cost effective for the independent writer, artist, or the independent comic book company. So I just wanted to get you guys' take on that. Now, the question that let me do this, that I really wanted to ask, and it was just something I got to thinking about last week. Man, that's a heavy question. That's a good one too. Damn it, I'm gonna have to save that one. We're gonna get to it, but I'm gonna do another one. This is like a full like 4 or 5 course meal. So now that we got those like little bread things out the way, let's do this one. I've seen it talked about various pages, um, like certain indie publishers, whatever, talking about how, or certain just fans, whether it is especially in like the black comic book community, indie community, like, Marvel and DC could die. And I think about that and I'm like, I don't think, once again, you all know exactly what you're asking for. Like, if you're talking about like a slow, gradual death, okay. But if you're talking about like an instantaneous type of thing, yeah, I don't think you realize just how bad that is. And the reason why I say that is not to, protect Marvel and DC, but just by market share, those two companies have like what, at any given point in time, what, 70 to 80% of the market. And to use like a physics idiom, space abhors a vacuum. So if you have two entities that control that much of the market, there's nothing that can fill that hole. So if they go down, they in turn, especially American comics, they take you with them, So I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on that. We'll start with you. We'll start with Alan because Alan's been in it a little bit longer.
So the question is, what is the exact question in terms of can we live without Marvel and DC, or is it a good thing if Marvel and DC had to collapse? Is that the question?
It's more like, I probably should have redefined the question. It's more like a thought. The way I wrote it is the fall of Marvel and Marvel DC and what that really means.
Okay, so right. So this is my take on it. Marvel and DC, it's not going to fall. And what a lot of independents are looking at or what they're thinking about, these companies have been around for almost a century, if not a century, right? So
like 85 years, I think.
Yeah, close. So they are the iconic superheroes, and superheroes and comic books are not the only facet of these things. So technically, if comic books had to slow down or fail, Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, they're not going anywhere. They're just an IP that is used for so many different things, from lunchboxes to curtains to pajamas to video games. So the issue is no independent has that, or is going to fill that void, as you said, because they're so far behind in the race. There's nobody's going to buy my characters' bed sheets. There's no, you know what I mean? So they're not.
No, don't cut yourself short.
No.
You make a good product. I don't know, man. You might have some people out there in Barbados who go out there and start slinging bed sheets, man. Sell it to the tourists.
But let me be real, right? So the truth of the matter is, comic books is only one part of the machine that is Marvel and DC. They have movies, they have cartoons, they have all these different things. And if they choose even not to pay that much interest in the comic book section and just like let it just falter, it's still not going to die. You know what I mean? Because something that people don't realize, they're comic book fans and they're comic book casuals. They're people who will they know the characters and never picked up a comic book. They're people who know all these characters we're talking about and they've never picked up a comic book. So it goes to show that people aren't comic book fans. They're Superman fans. They're Batman fans. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I think at this point, there's nothing that's going to kill those franchises, and that's been proven because they have run their lines into dead ends, reboots, killed characters, brought them back, waited a little bit. Just the other day, I heard, and I was quite happy. I actually heard that they're starting back Punisher again after they just killed him off and sent him into oblivion because they thought that the character was too toxic and stuff. But it's quite possible because of the last Daredevil series and the character being there and the fan base and people kind of liking the character, they may say, well, you know what, let me just bring the character back. I was surprised to see that the Punisher character was in Marvel Rivals. So it shows that there can be missteps, you could do things, and there's always the ability to reboot once you're Marvel and DC. You can always reboot.
Not even just that, but so to your point about Punisher, that's almost 100%. One thing I've told you off camera, like a story about my grandpa's, like if you watch something long enough, you start to see how it works. I can almost guarantee you 100%. Them bringing back Punisher does coincide with his appearance on Daredevil Reborn. Daredevil Born Again. But even to, like you said, Marvel Rivals, not only can it help revitalize Punisher, it could breathe new life into Jeff the Land Shark. Jeff the Land Shark. Who would have thought that shit? You know? I mean, Miles Morales, that's what bolstered his popularity, was a video game, was his appearance in Spider-Man. You know? And I wish somebody would say that's not what it was, because I can guarantee you I bought my copy of Ultimate Fallout #1 in a dollar bin, still polybag. The dude had 8 of them.
Yeah, Alex, I don't know this one. You're muted or something.
Oh, am I muted?
No, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, I was saying I would argue that his popularity was bolstered with the Spider-Verse movies, to be honest.
The game came before the movie.
Really?
Yeah. The game came before the movie.
Okay.
Yeah. So he made that appearance in there, but so the game made his appearance go up. The movies is what started to skyrocket, because the game was like 2018, and I think the Spider-Verse movie was 2019. Yeah, because the Spider-Verse movie came out. It came out. It had come out after Stan Lee died. That's because I remember I choked up a little bit because you see Stan Lee in there, and that was one of his last appearances, and I think it was 2019. You know what? I'll look it up later. It's not important right now, but I know the game started that. So, Adam, what's your take on that? Like, because I hear a lot of I don't want to say they sound bitter, but they're just like, Marvel and DC could die, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, bruh, the last time Marvel and DC, and once again, this is not to like fanboy them, but like to make a comparison, they are like the Bank of America and JP Morgan Chase of comics. If you don't know, those are huge financial institutions. Like, you can, over time, become too big to fail. Not because we want to, worship the corporate entity, but because of the people you employ, the other industries you affect. That is Marvel and DC. That's to Alan's point. If Marvel and DC goes down, there's a shit ton of people that are out of a job. And you said something, Alan, that was very poignant. There is no indie that could take that space. Space abhors a vacuum. So that's like 2 very big ass stars exploding, punching a hole in space-time, and now you've got a black hole. And guess what happens to everything in that vicinity? When everything in the event horizon goes down with it. You know what I mean? So when I see these things, I get your passion, but it's like, bruh, you're not looking at the greater whole. Now, if it's gradual, yeah, you can do that, because if they go down 5%, something else can slowly take that 5%. You know what I mean? But the comic book industry could not survive massive trauma like that. To put it in a body equivalent, like, you can absorb a lot of punches, but it would be very hard for you to absorb massive blunt force trauma. Like, it's like taking a sledgehammer to the face, right? You can't, ain't no way in hell you surviving that. You know what I mean? Not without severe damage. People don't think about it like that. They just like, once again, and this is what got me in trouble when I was saying, like, you guys say you're suitable equivalence alternatives, but do you really understand what that means? Like, it's a great marketing thing, sure, until we start to ask questions. You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't think you really know what you're asking for. Like, when you say and you ask to be the top dog, do you really understand what comes with that? Heavy is the head, that wears the crown. Not saying you can't get there, but understand.
Sure.
I mean, and even at this level, at like, you take Image, you take Dark Horse, you take Boom Studios, Dynamite. None of those companies, and those are fairly, big too, but and Dark Horse is probably a solid number 3. Image and Dark Horse are probably a solid number 3. And even they could not absorb that much trauma if Marvel and DC go down. It's like Dark Horse and Image are kind of like Citigroup. I'm talking about different banking entities that are also large, but they're not as large as like JP Morgan Chase and like Bank of America, So I seen that type of stuff. And go ahead, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me personally, I would like, for me, just in a general sense, like, personally, if Marvel and DC went down, as a reader, as like a comic book reader, I'd be all right. Because I don't, and I know that's like kind of going against what we've been saying, but like, just outside of like their market share, like, I would be all right. Because I'm not somebody who checks for like Marvel or DC. Like, when I go to a comic book store, I'm checking for Image, to your point. Like, I think, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. For me personally, I'm not the biggest Marvel or DC fan, but I know that we are the outliers. More people who are into American comics are into superhero comics. There are people who, when you mention comic books, they say, you do superheroes? And if you try to tell them, nah, comic books is a medium that you could do any story in, they only think about superheroes.
Yeah. And I think, but also, though, I would argue that, like, when it comes to the Marvel, DC specifically in this day and age, I think that like the whole machine that they have running, as like really talking about like movies and TV shows, I think that drums up, like, in 2025, I feel like that's doing a lot to drum up interest for the characters. You know what I mean? Like, how I notice there's always like, I'm seeing like new fucking Thunderbolts comics and shit on the shelves whenever it's time for the Thunderbolts movie to drop, like how they do that. So I feel like I feel like the comics, their comics part is never going to really, to your point, die like that, because it's sustained by such a large machine. But on like a broader, like, I think if you zoom out on like a time kind of perspective or scale or whatever, I think you're going to see a shift, especially when you look towards the younger generation. I think you're going to see a shift towards like web comics and manga and like manhwa and things like that. I really think that's where the kids are. Like, I feel like our generation, like, we're checking for American comics, like we're checking for Western comics. Yeah. But I think if you look at like what the kids are reading, it's definitely shifting towards manga and manhwa.
Yeah. And that's the other thing I want to clarify before, if anybody gets in the comments. This is really about American comics specifically, like that format. Manga and manhwa, that's a whole different animal in and of itself. That's a whole.
I think that's the future.
We've all seen the post. Well, there's some advantages to manga and manhwa, right?
Yeah.
For instance, Dragon Ball has been in constant print since, I think, when it came out, like 86. It's been in constant print. They make things that are just meant to be read, not necessarily to be collected. And very few things go in moratorium. But that doesn't mean that manga and manhwa doesn't have its own problems. Because as somebody who also watches way too much anime, and I am a sucker for long titles. Oh, I love the long titles. Healer transported to another world, and I was a stupid ass pharmacist, and now suddenly I got God level powers and Beyonce tickets, that type of shit. you know, like I'm a sucker for those type of things because I like to see how they play out. But they can fall into like heavy tropes, and they will take something and run with it and run it to death, you know.
Yeah.
And so, and then they also have a overabundance of like mangakas, which are comic book writers. Like, but there are, like I said, some advantages that
I think
like
they
Bleach, like
somebody.
like
I would say, as somebody who, like, when I started to get back, especially when I was gearing up to write my first comic, and I feel like I did what I felt like was my due diligence, you know, going back through like some DC comics, going back through Marvel, you know, going back to like my roots with the Ultimate Universe and shit like that. I wanted at one point to like jump into the main like X-Men line, but then I was seeing like you got titles going all the way back to the 60s, and you got like all types of stories going all over the place, and I don't know where the fuck I'm supposed to jump in, and it's frustrating. I mean,
so to that point, so
yeah,
I can speak to that directly, right? Not from the fact, not that I worked there, but I was in that position back in 2002. You know, when I was a kid, I had a few comics. You know, like I didn't even step foot into a comic book shop until I was like 17 years old, right? I don't know if they put it in the new copies, but the old copies of the Ultimates trades, like Ultimate X-Men, and I'm talking about from like 2001, 2002, whatever. That was one of the things that is said in the preface. Like at that point, they were like, Marvel has 20,000 characters, and the Ultimate line was created as a new continuity for the new reader to draw you in. Now, as far as the other stuff, there were things that Marvel and DC used to do to help you get caught up. So one of the things I did was I would go to Barnes and Nobles, I would sit and I would read DK publishing books. They said DK in the corner. These were white books, so you could pick up one on like Superman, one on like X-Men. I used to have I don't know what, I gave it to somebody, the one on X-Men, and these were books that kind of like basically did that research for you. You know, they weren't ultra thick, but they weren't like, you know, yay thin. You know what I'm saying? Like they had a little bit of girth to them to, you know, help you get caught up. You know, it may not have told you specific issues, but
but I'll be honest though, as a casual reader, that already like that would turn me off. If I'm a kid, already had like an iPad baby with like, you know what I mean? I grew up with iPads, like I have TikTok brain, low attention span. There's no way you're gonna get these. Let me not say there's no way, but like I don't. It's hard for me to picture, you know, like kids like that taking the time and wanting to take the time to like go through even a book that would summarize, that would get you up, caught up. Like, you know, it's easier. Like that's where manga and like web comics are a little more accessible. You can go straight to chapter.
I would say there are ways around it, and they're also still okay. So I'll give you an example. When I used to collect comic books when I was in my teens or before my teens, right? Comic books didn't reboot series, so which means that when I picked up a Hulk comic book, it was Hulk 400 or Hulk 337, whatever it was. They didn't reboot the numbers, but you could come in at any book, even if it was in the middle of a story. The stories in the comics were basically about 5 books long, which means that once you read like 2 months, there was a restart for a new story, and you was good.
Well, what they did, and I don't mean just a couple quick things. One, you mentioned Hulk. Peter David, long-term Hulk writer, he actually passed away, I believe. I saw something on from like Midtown Comics. He's the writer of like Hulk 340, you know, the Todd McFarlane cover. So I'll have to double check, but I saw something where he passed away earlier today. But to your point, what they used to be good at was, okay, you do a couple of arcs, then they would do a fresh arc, and then they would tell you this is a great jumping on point for new readers, you know. But to your point about manga can be every bit as confusing, especially when you're dealing with like a series like One Piece that's been running since 1999.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
So
and
even my
so
son, we were talking about it the other day, and he was saying he would never really get into One Piece
Yeah.
because it looks as though it's never ending. Um, Anybody who has to go to look at Naruto right now and they see all the there are things that are just as daunting in
yeah,
manga.
yeah,
What I would say in terms of comics, what they have done now is they keep every year there's a new number one. So
yeah. I
there's
hate
a
that. And most of
yeah
us hate it.
yeah it
And
creates another
all that.
problem.
Yeah,
It creates another problem because then you have so many number ones, or you have so many comics with the same number. You're not sure, so they have to call it by the year. So Spider-Man 2005
you
number
have to look at the
14.
volume number, and then that
Yeah,
makes it more
it's
confusing. And
complicated.
that's where, man, that's been a complaint for a long time. And all it is I agree with you. Go back to pure legacy numbering and let the comic book shop owners, which is part of what they're supposed to be doing, say, hey, you know, if you want a good jumping on point to kind of get caught up, start here. You know what I mean? But the new number one shit, like, I mean, I'm a fan of Miss Marvel. There's no reason why she's got like 5 volumes. Moon Girl, same thing. Riri Williams. The X-Men, man, I used to love the fact that the X-Men, for a long period of time, Uncanny X-Men was the only Marvel book that had not been rebooted. Then they did that too. I was like, okay. But I'm like you, every new creative team gets a new number one to bolster sales. And I'm like, this is pointless. Like, it's a milestone to get a book to 50 issues. And I'm like, it
Yeah.
shouldn't be that way. You know, but then we talked last episode, like I miss when there used to be editor's notes. Be like, oh, this character appeared here. Yeah. Well, go see, you know, Creamsicle number 5, and that'll explain to you why, you know, Wolverine got a hickey on his neck or some shit. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
miss that type of thing also. We're gonna have to come back to this one because I'm just looking at the time, and this we could probably go on about this. Like I said, there's some advantages, disadvantages, but just looking at it, when I like I said, when I see people say, man, they could die. If it's a slow, gradual thing, yeah, I could see it. But if you're talking about instantaneous, bro, you don't know what you're asking for because there's a lot of other industries and things that go with it. Like even creatives, like how many indies can afford to pay the page rate that Marvel and DC pay? You know, that's a topic in and of itself. So we got that one, got that one. I don't know if I want to do this one and that one. I'll wait till we actually get into the book. Okay, man. So this is a thought that's been coming up to my mind lately. And let me do this. Public domain, right? So
Mhm.
I've been thinking about this and copyright, right? And really wanted to ask you guys because both of you being creators, so I don't know how it is in Barbados, but in the US. So for instance, Adam, Super Dangerous is your book. Oh, I dropped my pen. Oh well, use my knife. Copyright is the life of the creator plus 70 years, right? Unless it's or it's 95 years from publication date. So characters like as we know, Steamboat Willie and Minnie Mouse, the Steamboat Willie version. So the original versions of those characters are now in the public domain. The original version of Winnie the Pooh is in the public domain. And so it got me to looking at this infographic of characters that will be entering the public domain. And add it to the stage. Boom. Here we go. Ooh, do I feel important? I feel. So let's take a look at this. Oh, shoot. Can I scroll down? I guess I can't. Sorry, folks. I'm still getting used to this myself. By the way, you guys can see the graphic.
Yeah.
Look at these characters that are going to be entering the public domain well within our lifetimes. Well within
Oh,
our lifetimes. So a lot of these characters are entering the public domain. So Superman came out, Action Comics #1, 1939. 95 years will put this at 2034. So essentially January 1st, I think it's like 2035. Any of you guys could use the original version of Superman. Yada yada yada, and you see all these other ones. And mind you, folks, it's the original versions of these characters. So it's the original versions and what they were capable of doing. I'm just curious, have you guys ever thought about public, copyright and public domain and what that could mean, for
You
you?
mean in terms of our characters, or do you mean in terms of using public domain characters?
Your characters, because for each one of these that comes available, like you see Betty Boop's going to come up in 2026, Popeye entered this year. There's always like some company that's like, oh man, we can't wait to use this, and it's in the public domain, so they can use that original version of the character however they want to use it. So I'm wondering, huh?
Can't wait to make a horror movie with this character.
Exactly. That's where I was getting at. So it got me to thinking, like, I know people who are creators, and, you guys are going to live long lives, but 70 years after you die, your work enters the public domain. And
to be
just want
honest,
to know if you guys had ever really
to be honest,
about that.
yeah. So I've kind of thought about it a little bit, but at the same time, it is not a problem. The only time this becomes a problem is if I start to make money on it, and it becomes like a big franchise. And then again, it's still not my problem. It's my descendants' problem. How they decide to license it or whatever. So it's never been really an issue for me in terms of when it becomes public domain. And in terms of the other side of it, I haven't seen a character that I was interested in doing a comic or anything that was in public domain. I know a few people who do comics with public domain characters, because sometimes characters fall into the public domain because they weren't copyrighted properly in the beginning, especially when the copyright laws was a bit hairy-fairy. So you have a few characters that from the time they were published, they went into public domain, or the businesses went into business or stuff like that. So there's a ton of characters, superheroes especially, because there was a time they were just pumping out superheroes and just leaving them to die. So, but as a creative, I always kind of see it as I could always come up with something. If none of these characters, I'm not going to make $1 million by doing a Popeye comic book. So why not just continue to do my own stuff? So that's kind of how my thought process has been. And then two, if I do a Popeye comic book, and everybody could do a Popeye comic book, the market is going to be flooded with me competing against all these other Popeye comic books. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I've never really got myself caught up in it, either from the aspect of when my stuff becomes public domain, or from the aspect of wanting to use a public domain character.
Before I get your take, Adam, there's some other characters down here at the bottom. Like, I'm still working this screen share, but that's all right. What is the copyright law in Barbados? So in the US, initially it's 27 years, and then you can apply to renew it for another 67. That's where you get 95, or that's where like a company gets the 95 years. I won't go into a lot of detail, but a lot of this is because of DC Comics fighting for extended copyright. Disney also, I believe.
Disney's a person who tried to hold on to their stuff. And they have a reason to, because they have a company. As I said, when I die, who knows if my comics will die with me. I should be happy to know that somebody picks up these stories and interested enough to try to do something else with the character. What I would be concerned with is now somebody trying to copy something that I have while I'm still working on it, because as an independent, there's nothing really stopping you from kind of biting on each other's work or stealing from each other. Yes, you could say, well, lawyers could get involved, but these things are pricey, and sometimes it's not worth it.
And then I think you kind of someone, because I had a secondary question with that, which was like, do you feel you've created a character that, you know, like I said, you don't know, because by the time your guys' work enters the public domain, we all gonna be gone, just by sheer age, or probably the way we see government moving, probably nuclear holocaust or something like that. You know, we might all be glowing green at that point. But like, do you feel that you may have created a character that people be like, yeah, I can't wait for, you know, Diary of Stray Dogs to enter the public domain. I've been, you know, it's somebody in the future who may have picked it up and read it, you know, and it's like I said, it's just one of those questions that I got to thinking about. And so I figured, hey, I'm going to have some creators on, people who have made things. And Adam, you know, we've spoken and I've talked to you about copyright, which that was one of the things I know you fixed with not Diary, but Super Dangerous #2 is the copyright mark. So what's your take? What you think, man?
I think that, I mean, you know, 7 years after I die, I'm not gonna really care what happens with my character.
Yeah.
I think that, and you know, to Alan's point, on the flip side, you know, the reverse has never really crossed my mind to use a public domain character, because I just wouldn't enjoy that. I think that, you know, the whole like point of this, and like, it's really fun. It's only fun because like these are your ideas. You know what I mean? Like, so never really occurred to me to use public domain character. But at the same time, like, do I feel like Josh Sanders is like iconic enough to, like, you know, when he enters public domain, to be used? I mean, honestly, he's Logan Superman.
Hold it a little still, because it's
Sorry.
there's lag.
This is the
There
best.
we go.
Yeah.
Literally a Superman tribute, like the rip off of the Superman. You know what I mean? So, I mean, he's basically Superman. You know what I mean? So, I don't know, dude.
I told you he's more like Invincible. Definitely a heavy Invincible.
But see, the beautiful thing about stuff in terms of characters that you create is you never know when it's going to kind of become like a, what do you call it, like a cult favorite, where it was never popular when it came out, but then it became popular for another generation, or it was you know, sometimes we see things pop up and it was like, this was something from years ago and now everybody kind of appreciates it. So you never know what's going to happen in the future. Sometimes these things that we have now will become classics. Somebody will pick it up. It just takes the right person to kind of pick up your book and promote your book for your book to take off. You know, it's a little bit of luck.
Look at Fantasia is one of those things. There's actually quite a few Disney movies that became popular afterwards. I'll tell you, one of the biggest ones is Nightmare Before Christmas. It bombed at the box office. It was a box office failure, you know, but it developed that cult following that you're talking about. And so, you know, that could also generate interest. I mean, it's going to be 95 years. So most of the people who grew up with it now, if you live that long, God bless you, you know, but that can help generate interest. Like, oh man, Jack Skellington's going to be, I think it'll be something like 2087 or 88 when he enters the public domain. So it could be enough of a cult following that like people would wait on that, you know, and probably to like Adam's point, because for some reason there's always a company that wants to do this, make a horror movie out of it or whatever, you know. But I just thought that was like a fun little little thought, like, you know, do creative sometimes think about that. Like, you can't do anything, you know, after you're dead, but you know, maybe it does get popular enough that it finds a second life after publication and whatnot. And like I said, just one thing led to another, thinking about copyright, what that means, and then like the public domain, you know, and people, once something's in the public domain, and like you said, certain characters enter the public domain just because copyrights never got renewed, so they are free to use however you want to use them, as long as you're using that specific version.
Right.
So I just wanted to get you guys' take on that. And that's a question. That's a question I'm probably going to ask a lot of creatives because it's like I don't know if you want to say it's like an existential question, but it's like one of those things is just you don't actively think about, but you kind of want to know.
Right.
Maybe it kind of gets you to thinking about like your legacy in the hobby. Like there's going to be people waiting to use any version of a Batman character that they could for free. You know what I mean? So that type of thing.
Writing
I
one
can't
right
ask that. That's good. You should have confidence in your stuff, man. If you don't got confidence in it, who the hell else is? I might save these. Let's see. We had 50 minutes. Okay. I could ask another question, but I think I may save it for later. It's actually 2 questions. I'll probably just save it for later. Adam, you want to go ahead and get into Super Dangerous?
Let's do it.
All right, let me set this up real quick. Okay, go back here. All right. Boom. All right, we got Super Dangerous number 1. Let's see if it lets me. It's not letting me do it. I can't change. Wait, maybe if I. Let me know. Can you guys? Did it?
Try
Yeah,
Did
to
it?
forward.
Yeah.
Did it change the page?
Yeah. It's
Okay,
gone.
am
It's gone to the. What's it gone to? I can see the page count. So if you hit the
Yeah.
That's forward arrow.
right, yeah, hit the forward arrow. Just right. You should be able to go for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if I'm on screen because the way this is working, it's not like when I have a PDF, I can be on the screen with it. So I'm gonna go back. Let's see.
Okay.
All right here. Adam,
So the good thing
we'll
about
start.
Mhm.
No, I
I
was
was
gonna
gonna say
say
the good
we'll
thing
start
about-
with the cover. Go ahead, man.
My bad. Sorry. The good thing about Global Comics is that like it allows you as a creator to kind of section off like panel by panel for the readers. So when you're doing like this forward arrow scroll through, it'll like take you like it'll zoom in on like the specific panels like sequentially.
Okay, kind of like what Marvel Unlimited does if you choose to
Yeah.
read that view, especially if it helps if you're reading on a mobile device.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, let me see something here. Can I do that? No, I guess I do gotta be on it. All right. So I'm actually on that particular page. So go ahead and introduce the book, the creative team. Well, tell us what we're seeing right here.
1000%. I mean, yeah, dude, this is a cover for Super Dangerous number 1. You know, written by me, illustrated by Lord Katodwe, my boy out of Ghana. I mean, dude, Lord Katodwe, like our meeting was a story in itself. I hit him up. I came across his work. Dude has like a heavy manga background. His manga panels are immaculate. Side note, we just dropped our chap, like, you know, I just dropped a chapter from a manga anthology that I'm coming out with right now that he illustrated on Global Comics as well. So check that out, whatever. But so I met him, I think I found him on like a Facebook group or Instagram. I don't know how I found him, but hit him up. I was like, bro, we gotta, I'm working on a project. I need you to do like some concept art for it. Commissioned him for that. And what he gave me was so dope that like that project that he did the concept art for got canceled or shelved or whatever. But like, I was just like, I need to work with bro on something. Like, we got to collaborate on something. So that was a big part of why Super Dangerous got written. It started out, it was supposed to be like a 3-issue short. And the more I wrote, like the bigger the universe grew. And it's this whole thing now. And yeah, man, I'm super proud of it. I love it. And I think it's really fun and entertaining. So that's Super Dangerous, baby.
Okay. Can you guys still hear me? All right. So I wanted to ask, like, what was, I mean, you don't have to say if you're not able, but, in various groups, it's talked about, like, one of the biggest cost to a book is the art. And so this is mainly No, you have physical copies of this.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know. Let me see how to ask this. What would you say the overall cost to produce Super Dangerous was?
It was pricey. I don't know if I want to give that, but it was definitely over 2,500 or not.
Okay, yeah, yeah. You don't have to give a specific number because I don't want to,
because when there's something that people when you get asked with pricing for comics, especially as an indie creator, and for your first book or you're working with a new team, you tend to the price that a person gives you sometimes it's just the price for you, or if you work on a deal with someone, so you kind of want to respect them so that you don't turn around and mess up any future deals for them. Or sometimes you will get a person will come and say, well, I'll do these pages for this amount, and then if you tell the person, well, this is what the person charged me, so most of the time any person they usually tell you, you go to this person and you negotiate your own pricing with them, because
That's
it
true.
varies. So
That is
what
true.
you can do to is whenever I give a price, I just usually go with the ballpark biggest number, like what the industry standard, especially for indies, are. Because when you give, especially when someone's coming up, you got a lot of people who are interested and they come and say, I want to do a comic book. How much does it cost? I do not give them the low ball cost, because that will mess them up immensely, because it varies. There's different little things that cost price to go up. One cover could just kind of I've got covers done for 200, and I know people who do covers for 500, 700.
Yeah.
So like it's just crazy. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
Big part.
and so
That's also a big too. It's like it's not just the panels; it's the covers. It's like the very
yeah,
letter. It's
absolutely. And that's why I asked the overall cost, because people do, like I said, it's not to dig in somebody's pockets. I don't want to do that, because honestly, I really don't care. But it is to give out that information from people who are directly doing it, guys like you who are creating, and then it may cost a little bit more for Alan being in Barbados, and so he could give some information on, like, okay, this is what it cost in Barbados dollars, and so this is what translates US, just that type of information. You don't got to be like, yeah, per page it was like $400, but just like you said, well, it was definitely over 2,500. I'm perfectly fine with that, because people need to understand like what the cost is. And this book is, would you say it's I don't want to say it's mainly digital, because that probably didn't really make a bit of difference, but
I would
what would you say
definitely. I would say I've definitely sold more physical copies than digital copies of Super Dangerous. Easily.
Okay. Yeah, you got a little bit of lag. So if you hold a book up to the screen, hold it there
Sorry.
for a couple of seconds so that it gets in focus, and a little bit closer, probably good enough. I don't know this. I just want to make sure they're able to see it. I like how he has merch just sitting there by his foot, probably. So then let me ask, go ahead. Huh?
I said I always have a ton of comics sitting around me at any given time for some.
Okay. So then let me ask this. This is not a like a page cost, but just a physical production cost. What did it run you to print all of your physical copies?
I would say, especially with, I'll give it a, like, their minimum order count for a print run is like 25, copies, and that's gonna run you, like, in the US at least, somewhere around $100, $100 with shipping, all that. So yeah, I couldn't even tell you how many times I've ordered, how many runs I've ordered these guys, because a ton of events between the time that Super Dangerous #1 out and now. So I don't know. It's just like, yeah, you can estimate, you know, an order of like 25 books costing you around that like $100, $90 number.
Yeah.
So and between
So
like
100. So we could safely say that just by sheer high school math, 100 books is
It's about
$400.
Yeah.
And then that's not including taxes and shipping. That's just their printing cost. So
That
Right.
should be shipping. That should be everything. Depending on, basically, it all depends on the page count. So the
Yeah.
page count. So what's your page count? Like if you have like 32 pages, it differs from, let's say, if you was 20 or 24 pages. The page count starts to really get in there.
facts. Also, if it's colored or if it's black and white, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and then the fancy covers. So when you do
Yeah.
hollow foil covers, those things really cost the price to go up.
let me
yeah.
ask this question, and I don't mean to cut you off. What does a hollow foil cover run?
I think it. Let's say you do a book. I think it adds like it could add like $1.50 more to the cost.
Okay.
So whatever your standard book is, it will then adds on to the cost of it.
Okay. And then usually I don't usually see indies doing this. I'm not saying that they don't. I usually see this with like the little, titty books or whatever, like metal covers. Do you guys by chance have any idea what those run, or acetate covers?
Metal covers are pricey. Metal
Yeah,
covers,
yeah.
I think they will add like $8 to the book. I was looking into it. I think it's like almost $8 added to the book print cost.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna.
What I would
Go
say
ahead.
is that those things, one of the things I've kind of learned was, so the first time I did a Kickstarter, or I was thinking about doing Kickstarters, or when I do books, I was thinking about doing a lot of different covers and doing different kind of covers. But if you don't have the fan base, it doesn't make sense. Just kind of
Right.
do 2 basic covers, just two the most, because
Yeah.
more covers is not going to bring more sales, but what it will cause is more print costs. So sometimes it's just do one.
I agree. I agree. Do too. And then if you look at like, if you go to, was it League of Geek, and because you can always look at like what's coming out that week. If you see a book by the big two and it only has like one cover, or it has no other variants, that could also, just by sheer logic, can kind of tell you where that book sits at sales wise, because they don't believe in it enough. It's not earning enough to garner like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 covers, or to even have like specialty covers like a Midtown cover and stuff like that. So I agree. Do 1, 2, because people do like the variants, but, and this is, man, that really leads me into another thought that I have, but I'll save that for another issue. But I'll just say it like this: just because you've seen people do it doesn't mean you should do it. And like Alan said, you got to look at your cost and understand that. Don't use a tool just because it's in the toolbox. Learn and understand what that tool actually does and what it's supposed to be used for. Just my perspective. Like I said, anybody watching this, you don't have to agree, but you got 2 actual creators basically kind of saying the same thing. All right, let's get back to the book. Now, I will say, I know from just personal talks, Adam, one of my biggest things was just the art with the book. There were times where, I told you that I didn't too much care for some of the art, but overall it's not super bad. And like I told you, I'm not going to say anything in this video that I haven't told you when I've spoken to you privately. So, but I do want to say this, huh?
Yeah, I said we're all on.
Oh, no, I just want. Yeah. So I just want to say, go ahead and just guide me where you want to go. Obviously, this is Resolve Comics. This is the socials. So, yeah, this is the copyright. Yeah, this is the thing. You definitely fix that with the second issue. Also, some more social media stuff for everybody.
Yeah.
All right. So, like I said,
Right.
always say that the reverse here should be reversed. That writer should be on top of your name instead of your name on top of writer. But that's just, like all of those descriptions, like line and colors, lettering and title. If you're going to do it that way, where your name isn't in bold, put it underneath that. It just simply reads better. But that's me.
Right.
Kind of like at the bottom where it says, because I got to look at my computer screen and I'm looking at my monitor, folks, where you have variant covers, and then underneath that it says Amari Morales, and I'm gonna let you read that. I know the last the second name is Juwan or Juwan, depending on how they pronounce it, but I do not want to butcher that person's first name. Is it Omo Boriwo? I'm gonna let you say it.
I've never pronounced his name out loud. Omo.
This man said I ain't never
Boriowo.
pronounced his name. Wait a minute, hold up.
There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong. It's nothing
happens.
wrong with. It's nothing
I
wrong
don't
with
think I did a
that.
bad
It's
job
just-
though. Omo Boriowo sounds like Omo Boriowo sounds like all right.
No, it's not. It's just that when you said it, it reminded me of like when you see Cardi B's full name and somebody says, "Yeah, I feel like if I say that out loud, my furniture's going to start moving." And when you said that, I was like, he said, "I ain't never said this man's name out loud before. Like if he says it, some shit's going to start moving. The weather's going to start changing." Sorry. To the I apologize. That was just funny the way he said, "I ain't never said that man's name out loud before." I'm sorry.
But,
all right, man. Let's go ahead and get past this. So, like I said, if you've seen the show before, I'm gonna let you guide us through. One thing I do like is I do like the saturation of the colors. Like this page, not bad at all. I like not the set, but the vividness of the colors. So
can I ask you something about your workflow? So
sure thing.
how did you go about? Did you complete the entire script? Let's say from all the pages were done, all the dialogue was in place when you handed it over to the artist, or were you still working on some of the stuff? Like was it like you're working on 10 pages and I'm working on 10 pages and you're kind of catching up? How was the process?
Typically my process would, it's always the same. It was, I admittedly, a bit faster just because this thing was kind of just I don't know how to describe it. It was special. It was like a special thing for me. But it was really fun, and so I was able to get it done a lot quicker. But typically my workflow is that, if I have an idea that's really like hitting me, and I kind of work a lot of it out in my head, then I will do a brain dump on some sort of like notes app, in a Google Doc, whatever. Do a brain dump, just get out all of the information, all of the scenes, all the information that I, have generated about this series onto a page. And then from there, I'll kind of organize it into a workable summary that covers like, the pilot and then like the first, arc, and however many arcs I have or that I've dumped out. It might not be like all of the information about the series, but it'll be like a sizable chunk. And then once I have, a workable summary, I'll kind of just divide it up into chunks, take that first chunk, work out like a first issue script summary. From there, I'll work out a script, kind of script off of that summary, and just get that tightened up. And then, like you said, I'll hand it, once everything's tight, ready to go, I'll hand it to the artist.
Do you set about, I know for indie creators, we're not governed by rules of how big the book should be, unless it's kind of like financial rules. But do you set about and say, this book is going to be 24 pages, 28 pages, and make it work? Or do you write the script and where it kind of ends, you kind of just let it end?
Even the page limit. I don't set any limits on the page limits. I do try to, especially these days I do try to keep it in 30 page like max range, but honestly, I've definitely had like first issues that ran past like 40 pages type shit. So it really kind of just ends where it ends.
Okay.
My goal, I think, especially with this book, my goal, I like while I was writing it, like the thing I had in my mind, like we're trying to hook the reader. That's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to hook the reader, especially in
Mhm.
these 4 pages. Like we're trying to hook people.
Right.
Just as a side note, I did say I would bring it up later. The Spider-Man game came out September of 2018. Enter the Spider-Verse came out December of 2018.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I just looked that up real quick because I needed to get that out. That was actually a good question. I didn't even think to ask that, Alan, about like what his process was.
Yeah.
All right. So let me get back over here. All right, man. So we got the opening page right here. Like I said, I like the vivid color of it. Like I said, even though we've talked about the art, it's not. It is leaps and bounds ahead of some books that me and Alan have looked at. Books that we will not get into.
I
Uh,
put Lord Cthulhu anybody. For me, he is my goat. I'm one of his biggest fans, bro. Like
Yeah.
I
I actually like this. I actually like the art on this. There's a lot you can tell. So if you go forward, I'll ask another question because the other one's but
yeah,
I want to
I
see
want him
some.
to guide me through like the pages. So I'll just
I
skip
mean sure.
ahead.
No,
Just
yeah.
let me
So
know when you want me to stop.
this is I mean, yeah, we'll hit it right here. I mean, even Leo, let's go back a page. Right. This is our introduction. Like this is our boy Josh Sanders. He's super carefree. Kind of at the top, we have our like introduction, Josh Sanders, like his power set. You have his dialogue, like he's kind of just like, he's enjoying life. It's been 6 months. I didn't really say, but it's been 6 months since he's gotten these powers. And yeah, man, he's chilling. He's enjoying life. He is doing what he wants to do because this is at its core like a black boy power fantasy, and this is a black boy who has all the power in the world and cannot be checked by anything. There's no man-made weapons, asterisk, man-made weapons that can be used, pulled against him. Like he is free from, you know what I mean? So
I know there's a page that kind of illustrates that where he got like reparations stuff. Let's see if we could.
yeah, yeah,
Unless
yeah.
you want me to like go through all of these because this is him getting his powers.
Kind of.
So I
It's
mean,
just yeah, it's like he was a average college student. He's a guy who's just chilling. He's out behind his parents' house. He's smoking. Then he gets hit with the energy bolt, gives him powers.
yeah,
This is what he's decided to do with his powers since he got them. Since he was, endowed with all the power in the world, this is what he's decided to do with it. Right? He's helping people that, need help, doing what he believes is his part to restore things and give hope to people. Right. And
yeah.
just doing the superhero, all like anything you would like, what you would expect the classic superhero books to, what I mean, the hero to be doing.
Yeah, it hit the typical like superhero notes. Like I said,
Yeah.
everything. Once again, that's exactly what I told you when we first spoke about this way back in November. I was in Houston. I was actually out in front of a comic book shop when we were discussing that. I had to wait to check into my hotel.
Yeah.
And I think I told you at that time it was very reminiscent of Icon and Rocket season 1. Because they did a similar thing, like they burned poppy fields and stuff like that and started to clean up crime in the streets,
Right.
And essentially, like I want people to understand, like what go ahead.
I said
Huh?
like just all the generic, like getting all like the generic superhero.
Yeah, all the stuff like I don't know if you're familiar with the song Alan and Adam, you may not, but like Nas's "If I Rule the World, I Free All," that kind of thing. It's like, okay, if I was, let's say, a black dude from the hood and I was given all these powers, what would I do? I go ahead and get all the easy shit knocked out, reparations, because I think that is one of the things that he does get.
So if you move to the next panel, it's really the next 2 panels. This is like these kind of, I think, mean a lot more than I thought they would to me. And like I feel like, especially like one of I did an interview with some people during the campaign for issue number 2, and we kind of talked about how like this is also like kind of a cathartic thing for like people who have been, who are just tired of this system and tired of like how things are run. It's like, yeah, like this is like, a lot of people feel the same way. Like if they got Superman level powers, like they would like start checking those in charge who were kind of doing what they want and all that.
Actually, this is the panel right here.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
And so it's funny that you said like he did all of the basic superhero stuff, and there was a discussion that me and Alan were a part of, and so somebody asked, like, so what does he do after that? You know, like it stopped right there, and it's like, no, it didn't stop right there. He just got the easy shit out the way. Now he goes and be's a hero, and I think it's probably starting after here. You, at least for me, and I know when we spoke, you said the same thing. Like you'll start to see the Invincible influence really come in. Yeah.
And in the way, just like he's like naive, like even he's like,
who got two pit bulls out there fighting for money?
right. He's trying to force his will upon like the world's superpowers, like global leader, and like how he's just doing all of these things that idealistically like you think like should be done, but it also kind of like his he's a kid and doing like he's kind of going about it in a childish or immature way.
Yeah, it's one of those things like you probably, let's see, how old are you, Adam, if you don't mind me asking? You're in your 30s, right?
I'm 30.
30?
Yeah, I'm 30.
Okay, so you probably don't too much remember because you would have been a young child, but this was a commercial that came out mid 2000s, and it's like it was something like, what if like firemen ran Congress or whatever, and they were like, oh, people need clean water. Do we all agree that people need clean water? Yeah, see, it's just that easy. And the reality is it's really not that easy when you look at the logistics of a thing. And I just wanted to share it because you said like he's doing the things that we would want, but he's going about it in a childish way because he's a teenager. Like, okay, we need reparations. You need to run us that money for all the pain and suffering. Okay, you want to stop drugs? It's as easy as just going in there, using this superpower, and whooping all the it's my shit. Fuck it, whooping all the niggas in the trap house. You know what I'm saying? Like, but the reality is like there's ramifications for that. And one thing, I won't spoil it for anybody, but what I liked is what you did in issue 2, where he starts to kind of see what those ramifications are in the looks of his own family. Like I said,
face like a train.
Yeah, and it's like as you guys read this book, like you will start to heavily see like that Invincible influence. And like I'll recommend right now, Rob from Comics Explained has a really good series on Invincible where he goes through the entire series, every arc, and there's a lot of philosophical themes that are in that book, and he explains it, that like inform Invincible's outlook. Like, is this really that important? Do I need to do this? I can't think of some of them off the top of my head, but it's those things that inform his outlook later on in the series and being a hero and what that means.
Right.
So, and that's what I said, like, this is something that you kind of, I'm sorry, Alan, did you want to say something?
No, I'm good. I'm good. No, listen. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's one of the things that I noticed. And that's something that I told you when I first read the story. I'm like, okay, he's figuring out kind of what it means, But like I said, I'm just going to keep going. Just let me know when you want me to stop.
100%. Yeah. You're seeing, he's getting the call. Next page, you see like some of these consequences immediately, kind of are starting to hit, right?
That's a very detailed page. I said, there was certain parts where I was like, the art, but then looking at it on the monitor, I really got to give your artist credit. It is a lot more detailed, and trust me and Alan can tell you, we had a discussion with a book where the art was not as tight. This is one of those ramification pages, right? Or did you were talking about?
But yeah, so it's like literally, he gets a call from Agent Gunn, and he's expecting the president, to have capitulated to his demands for reparations for all.
Hold on, let me go back. This is Agent Gunn right here, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So he's getting.
And is that the same guy that we see, I guess, when he's addressing the United Nations, or?
No,
That was the
no.
president. That
But
was the
he's on,
president.
and he's. Mhm. Oh yeah, he's on the front cover, and he appears, in issue 2, obviously. But yeah, he kind of just letting John know that like, no, we didn't do the reparations thing. We actually took your family, and go ahead.
So yeah, so this was one of the only things that but it speaks to what you did well with the book was it shows that the character was naive because he was doing all of this stuff. And one of the things that we know from Superheroes 101, if you're a superhero, you gotta kind of hide your identity because somebody's gonna come after you, something's gonna happen, some sort of. So I remember when I was reading it the first time, and he was doing all this stuff. And then also being so hardball against the government, I was like, this is gonna come back and bite him in his ass.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right. So the way how it was done, it did play up the fact that he was naive and stuff. And I did like that aspect of it. And that was very well done because as I said, he thought he knew everything that was going on, but he didn't know anything. The only
Not
thing
just naive, arrogant.
very arrogant.
Oh, yeah.
It's very arrogant.
Yeah,
It's very
very.
arrogant. Very arrogant. So
Nothing hurt
that
me
was
so
well
far.
done. So that was well done. The only thing from a editorial standpoint that I would say was because we were introduced to the family before, it didn't have the emotional impact seeing them captured here because we never saw them in their free state. Like if we had seen him at like telling them goodbye or something. So that was the only part that I kind of was like, I didn't get. So when I saw this page here, this was the first introduction to the family, and it didn't land as strong as it would have if we were probably introduced to them, so we knew they had a family because that was the only thing. But I do like the way how, as you said, you did that well in terms of the character being naive, being very arrogant, being very cocksure about everything. Yeah.
He's like
And
nothing.
To Alan's point, I didn't even think about that because when I saw it, I just thought about it like, okay, this is just those decisions coming back to bite him in the ass. I didn't really think about like, oh yeah, it would have had a little bit more weight, especially when you say there's been like 6 months and he's been so blatant. Like there could have been some exposition or some panels just dedicated to how his family reacts and how he interacts now with his family. Because it reminds me as I sit and I think about it, there's another book, another indie book, and it's like when you read it, there's never any introduction to even how the character got their powers. It's like you come into it and it's almost like you're supposed to already know how they got there, and I'm like a little bit of setup, but as Alan says that I thought about it then and forgot, or I just truly did not think about that. Because the one thing I do remember was looking at this and I'm like, okay, this is one of those, the shit's about to get real for him moments,
I would, and honestly, I can acknowledge that it's not gonna tug your heartstrings more so. This is more so like less of an introduction to his family, more of like a weak point being exposed. This is like, purely a chess move. Like you think you've been introduced to Josh Sanders as he is, and it's been established that like they can't get him with bullets or bombs. What can they get him with? And like we've set it up so, he's been running around, no mask, all that. We got your family. You know what I mean? You left them. And against the arrogance, he's been so arrogant to like, they're not going to touch him. Like, you going to touch my family? Like, what's going to, all right, yeah, we got your family.
And you do, and then without spoiling, you do see this expounded more on in the second issue.
Oh, 100%. That, and if you're looking for that emotional, like, heartstring tug, you're going to get that, like, that's kind of addressed in the second issue a little bit. But I mean,
no. I was also gonna say like that moment you just described where it's like we've got your family. Like if you once again read Invincible, let me go back to him. This character is, I can't think of the dude's name in Invincible, but he's a similar type of character where it's like
Cecil.
He's kind of thinking like, like you said, there's what you think it is, and then there's what it really is, and you you really don't know the depth of the game that you're in. So
100%. But yeah, I mean, standard like panels, the stakes are kind of being exposed now. We got your family. You are now under the compliance of the U.S. government. You'll be taking your orders, head to Area 51, boom, right? And you can keep going. That's pretty much what this page is. He zooms off. Next page, we kind of get. I think this kind of makes it interesting. I feel like this, especially when you read his last narration, his last thought before we kind of tear away from him. It's like, want to see how fast I become a supervillain. Like, you kind of see how he's about the direction this book is going, in which he's about to go head with the U.S. government.
Yeah.
Right.
So I wanted to go ahead, man. Go ahead and finish.
And once again, I think that kind of just plays to the sense of catharsis. If you are dissatisfied, which a lot of people are dissatisfied with the U.S. government, it's kind of like you get that sense of all right, bet, yeah, he's about to start moving ahead. But
I can show you better than I can tell you.
Yeah.
So for me, and once again, I'm just going to say what I've already said to you. This was probably one of the first things that I was like, this is a mistake, and sometimes you don't know what you just don't know. And so for anybody out there wondering why, he says, relax, Marine, but he's at Air Force 50. He's at Area 51. Area 51 is an Air Force base, but this is easily explainable. I just took it as, okay, well, maybe Adam didn't know that. Because a lot of people don't know what Area 51 is actually classified as.
It's a joint force operation.
Yeah. I told him, I said, oh, yeah, you could just play that off as a joint force operation, especially considering.
That's 100% what it is. Because these, you have to remember, they're preparing for Josh Sanders. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But the thing, when I initially read it and when we spoke about it, there's no Air Force personnel there. And that's who would actually be manning that base almost in totality. So.
Sure there are.
But yeah, where are the Air Force people at?
In the background, you don't see them.
Are they invisible?
Obviously, I'm just saying it, but it's just yeah, you know what I mean.
Let's see. I mean, just let me know when you want me to stop, man. It's something you
right here. So here's where you kind of get here's where we're kind of upping the ante. It's here, wait for the drop, right? He's confronting them, boom, he talking his shit. I don't know how you fuckfaces expected this to go, but here's what's going to happen. I'm about to tell y'all right now what's going to happen since y'all want to fuck with me so bad, right? And he starts going off with his threats. One of you guys is going to tell me exactly where my folks are being held. Fuck fuck your orders. We're not doing this. And, here we go with the threats. If any of you don't feel like complying, you can just swallow your teeth, letting you know, I'm gonna fuck you guys up. The commander, captain, whatever he is, he's like, look, son, I'm afraid that's not gonna work for us. Next panel, he's just cut the chit chat. We're ready for you. Come on, kid. You need to be put in your place. Ja's good. Y'all pissed me off. I was ready for this. And this is the fucking one of my personal favorite, parts.
That's a nice panel, man. That's a nice
2-page spread, man. Lord Katodwe went the fuck off. You also see his anime influence, manga, right? These panels of the guy grabbing the guy's face, throwing it at his fellow soldiers who are shooting at him. Boom, a dude in a super suit is coming at him, trying to Superman punch him behind. Bro gets behind him, fucking pile drives him into the ground. You know what I mean? Ripping through machinery. Yeah, stuff.
Question here. So when you describe this page and stuff, would you have shown him references, or because especially if you're dealing with someone with a language barrier or a cultural barrier, how was it getting some of this stuff across, knowing this is what I mean, or this is how I want this kind of stuff done? Something that working with a lot of international artists, there's a little bit of a learning curve to kind of what they're exposed to or how they say certain things, and kind of getting into the same kind of vibe. How was that in terms of a page like this, especially with the suplex?
With this, with Katodwe in general, there's no
no barrier other than like if I'm just not being detailed and I'm kind of writing out like if I'm kind of scripting like a dickhead and I'm really not being detailed enough, then like that is it's user error. Like the Toadway for this page specifically, like it was I kind of just I script like an idiot. I was just like full page, or 2-page spread, like go the fuck off, like, and then
something that you said sometimes though, you said how I would give my artists free reign sometimes, especially if we've done enough together or if I trust them enough. Like how you just said, you started to script like a dickhead, and you said like, because who is best to kind of plan the page but the artist. So if I would say, well, look, I want the guy to get a punch and his helmet is totally destroyed and he's not knocked back. I want him running at these guys and the guys are shooting him. I may picture it the other way, but because he's drawing it, he may realize it's best I do it this way and stuff like that. So I kind of give them the freedom sometimes to do stuff, especially a page that is so dynamic like this.
I would agree with you when I work with artists like Katodwe or say like my girl Kat. But there are also other artists that I've worked with where number one, there is sort of a language barrier that we do have to kind of, and that's when it really is, the onus is on me to be as detailed as possible and to provide this. And that's also that's also when, as much as you do want to trust, or even if it's like outside of language barrier, just if you guys aren't in sync, like I feel like Katodwe is also just one of those people where like I will write script, not leave a detail out, but picture it. And when it comes time for him to illustrate it, that detail will be there because we're just like similar in that way. But it's like, especially if there's a very specific vision and it's not like a technical, there's no like technical reason why you can't have it that way, then it's like, I will need to sometimes be like, no, I need this. I need him posed like this. I need this detail here. I need him, I need a little more dynamic like this. So I think it varies between, artists. It just depends on like who you sync up really well with.
Yeah, you guys are really simpatico with that.
Yeah, 1,000%.
There's something I've experienced lately, especially when a lot of people are coming to me and they're hitting me up and they say, can I do some work for you? And I would say, well, do a test page, not give them a script page. And you will realize that some of these guys, the artwork is good, especially if they do poster work, but they cannot compile a page. So then it's a lot more energy too. I don't mind spoon. I dare realize that when you are with a good artist, your script starts very detailed. As it goes on, it becomes less and less detailed because they're drawing over the same character, so you don't have to get into certain things. They're following the story, so they know when you say run down the alley because you just talked about the alley for 2 pages. So everything starts to become less and less detailed, and they're kind of feeling them jive.
You built a rapport.
Yeah, but I find that but I find with some of the newer artists, or if you find artists and they're not very good.
Yeah,
they're green at building pages and coming up with stuff. They're very green. So I always try to tell people, do not pick a comic book artist from their poster work. They're two different things.
Absolutely. I got a friend who draws, and was a long-term friend, and my buddy would be like, man, what do you think about this? I'm like, yeah, it's a good drawing, but it's all full page spreads. And I'm like, that's not going to get you a job because a comic book publisher is going to want to see you draw that character at different scales. Like, that's why they have those variant covers, those design variant covers. And if you look, it's that character drawn at different angles, different scales. Like a lot of artists, most artists can do a full page spread or essentially even a cover. It's not the same when you're in each individual page. I wish you guys could see the cursor. Actually, let's just go back. Like these individual panels, Like
Yeah.
Ja's in different positions and he's different sizes, There's an artist, he was really good at that. He passed away. I don't know if you know him, Adam, but he's real famous in the comic book community. George Perez. George
Yeah,
Perez
I've
was
heard.
really good at that.
Yeah.
You guys never heard of George Perez?
No, I've heard of him. I know George.
Yeah. Adam, you got to look up George. George Perez was a long time artist on Teen Titans. He also drew DC's Crisis on Infinite Earths. Like George Perez, if I remember correctly, George Perez, he's the co-creator of Cyborg and Raven and Starfire. From DC Comics Presents 26. Him and Marv Wolfman. Marv Wolfman was the writer. George Perez was the artist. George Perez also, I think, holds the record for the most amount of characters on a single comic book on a page. Like he loved to do like team books too. But he big time artist, passed away about 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah, bro.
So let's go ahead and go forward. But like actually, you may not want to talk about anything on the stage, but just to kind of show different scale, like you see Ja there, you see that. Go ahead, man.
No, it's just that was see him. All right, so he gets poked in the back with a sword. He feels that, which is unique because he really shouldn't have felt, man-made weapons like a sword should like bend against his back, right? But so it's kind of like a little surprise, but then we clarify in the next panel. It's like the amount of pain that he felt from that sword stab in the back was like somebody kind of pricked him in the back with a thumbtack. Like it wasn't anything, didn't pierce him or anything like that.
But go ahead, man.
Yeah, no, that's it.
No. And I was gonna say, this is where you really, the art already had it a little bit there. I had a thought, but never mind. This is where you kind of really see like that manga influence, because this is something that they definitely do in manga a lot.
The little chibi.
And the only other thing, because you can always go back and listen to what I said. The only other thing is I said watch copyrighted material, so we see the Nike symbol on the shoes, and that was more just like, ain't nothing you can do about it now, but like I just told you, like, you gotta watch out because you don't want companies like Nike and them to come. And trust me, these companies, you think they don't see stuff, but look up Nintendo. Nintendo definitely watches. So that was just one of those little things, and that's just information that I'm also sharing for anybody else. Like you got to watch out for that type of stuff because these companies do watch how their brands are displayed.
Valid.
Yeah. So, but I did want to just go through, because that's once again we were talking about like not just like those full page spreads. There was a book I read a couple of years ago, or was it a book or like an article about like an artist, about like why this guy would hire an artist, and he was an editor for Marvel and DC. I can't remember which one he was with at the time, but he was talking about like the full page spread thing, and then nobody wants to see what you were capable of doing 2 years ago. They want to see what you're capable of doing now. I'm hiring you for what you can do now, not for what you did 2 or 3 years ago, So
1,000%. But yeah, this is Jensen Strider. I guess first introduction of the introduction was back on like page 3, but this is Jensen Strider. Super Marine. Nah, we don't got to go all the way back to it. But yeah, you kind of see him like sweating, in page 3, and then he's back at it. He was the guy that was selected by the U.S. government to wield this ancient cursed sword that they editor's note like located in I guess back in the 60s and have been running tests on and shit. And he's the guy that they selected to wield it. But yeah.
And one thing I think it also does, and I'm pretty sure I told you this, is that it sets him up as a future antagonist.
Not yet. Now he's still fodder.
Right now on this page he's still cannon fodder. Okay,
yeah, he's still So John's still not taking him seriously. You know, Jensen tried to talk down on him, called him a kid, but he kind of just making a little joke, like, "You call me boy?" Like, I know I'm 19, but it sounds racially motivated, like that. And then he's talking to shit. He gets kind of focused on something from the sword, like calls his attention to it, and he gets curious about it. And once again, he's really not paying Strider any attention. Strider's really like serious. He's like coordinating with his team, like, all right, we're about to go back in, like, watch my back, like da 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 da. And mid sword strike, he just gets the sword took from him. And per the curse, the rules of the curse, like, you can't, once you start wielding that thing, number one, like, if you're immortal, I'm not gonna like spoil shit, but number one, like, a regular guy, if you start wielding that cursed sword, you can't separate from it. You got to be holding that shit at all times, because once you let go of it, once it gets taken from you, once you relinquish it, the curse activates and it drains like the remainder of your life force to supplement any and all curse energy that you've used. So he is kirking out, having seizures. He's just got his sword taken from him, and they haven't prepared for him to like release the sword yet. So he's off, he's out. Ja's examining the sword. He's like, what's going on? Are you calling to me? Something said yes. And I think the next panel is a blackout panel. Yeah, he's, eyes roll back, blacked out, wakes up somewhere. And it's kind of trippy. And we are to location now.
Yeah. And I think you transition. Like I said, you start to see more and more of that anime influence as the book goes along. But I'm going to say this: the art looks better to me as I can see it on a larger monitor rather than my tablet. It does look better to me than what it initially did. I can see why you praise him so high. Like I said, once again, me and Alan, we've
best artist in the world.
Alan. We don't even want to go into discussions about some of the art we've seen in some books.
You've seen that top quality Lord Toadway magic, baby.
I love
I want to say something here. Yeah, but I want to say something to he does the colors also, or someone else did the colors?
He does the colors. He, like I said, he is like a heavy manga background. He was doing his like black and white ink tone panels. But for this, he was like, he's like, do not let anybody else do the colors on this. I want to do the colors for this.
Okay.
And I think that helps. I think that helps. Well, not just because he wanted to do it, but like he has a passion for it. So, like I said, whatever deal you guys worked out, like he's going to put his best work forward. And like I said, you guys are really simpatico with it. So, like, that's a really good team up. And that's something me and Alan talked about, I think maybe in the first episode we did, was like really having that connection, that rapport with an artist, to the point like what Alan said. And for anybody, that's a good point. Like initially your script is like a Bible, but as it goes along, it's less and less because you trust this person to understand what the vision is. You know what I mean? And so, and I'm glad that you got that with this guy. And then, like I said, I don't say he's the greatest of all time. I like your confidence there, but I definitely see
greatest of all time.
Nah, I can't do that one. I'm gonna say from what I've seen in some indies, he's definitely good, but all time, he can get there. He can get there, but it's some artists.
There's a lot of things that I kind of look at, especially I kind of see things from a creator standpoint. So as a creator, there's certain things I look for in an artist's work. So he does things like shadows. Those are things that a lot of colorists overlook. So he does a lot of shadows. And shadows is something that we kind of overlook, but it makes the world look believable when there's casting of shadows. When somebody pays attention to light, a lot of things that we see that is an issue. So go back to the other panel there again, Ronald. The other one with the shadow. Okay. Go forward, that one. So a lot of people.
Wait, you wanted the
last
which
last one? Come on.
Right here?
Yeah, that one. So a lot of people, I've seen a lot of work where people color something, but they don't understand light and shadow. They don't know where the light source is coming from. So these are little things that will make your book stand out. The only thing I would say in terms of, and I know this is from being a part of the whole creative aspect of working with a book, you work on a book for months. Sometimes you can see sometimes when there's fatigue or where the person kind of took a little bit of, they didn't put as much into one page as the other one.
Mhm.
And sometimes as the creator, you kind of say like, you're already kind of working this person like a horse. Nobody's going to notice.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Let's go on. Because there's a point in a book when you're creating, you just want to get finished. And you kind of just want to correct blatant mistakes, and you just leave certain things for, let's see who picks that up. You know what I mean? Ronald has a really good eye. So see like how he picked up the Nike sign or something like that, where I would guarantee
Oh man, you have to.
100 people read this book. They're not gonna pay, unless they're a sneakerhead and they're like, you
Yeah.
got on the latest whatever the sneaker is. Most people are gonna be like, I didn't even see the Nike sign.
And that's something that you say that, but Adam, you probably don't even remember. You'd have to go back in our instant message chat. Adam said the same. He's like, I didn't even notice. I was like, yeah, I had that said about me before. But to your point, like there's this like light sources, global lighting. And like I said, I see it better now on my very nice 32-inch curved monitor. I'm gonna go ahead and say, Dell, y'all want to throw your boy that sponsorship? Go ahead. You know what I'm saying? You got to put those things out there. But I am noticing that like that is a lot of shadow. A lot of times, global lighting, jaw would all be colored. Like there, you would, judging from this, I would say, man, I really wish you could see my fucking cursor, because I would kind of point out where the light is coming from.
Mhm.
Start in the upper, the northwest corner, and go down to the southeast corner. That's where your light source is. And as I see it now, I really do see where I don't even think I noticed that at first. Did I? Probably didn't. And then
Yeah.
you look at the side, let's see, this would be Jaw's left arm based on the way he's positioned. Just look at the shadow there. That's a lot of stuff. And like I said, man, oh man,
Yeah.
me and Alan.
Yeah. There's a lot of things
We
as a
had-
creator you look for, because
And it ain't even just that. Go ahead, man.
it just makes the book,
Yeah, it's those
makes the
it's
world
people.
makes the world feel up. And as you said with the global lighting,
Those
Yeah.
those nuanced things. Like I said, I see why you love him so much, because he put a lot of extra. I'll say this, and I'm gonna keep it a whole buck with you. I think you lucked out. I think you lucked out with somebody that
100%.
really liked your project. The only, I'll say like Luna #1, Alan knows that's a book that I actually like. Art is also done really well there. And so that seems like there's an artist there that actually really cares about that project. But I would say you lucked out, because there is a lot of attention to certain things that most people like Alan probably can kind of guess, but remember the conversation we were having in our admin chat about a particular panel, and we literally talked about just how bad this panel was, like the background, and was it an alleyway or not? And then, like, not to my home, but to Adam's point, is like I looked at it and I'm like, okay, now this is clearly a street. Here's the direction of the cars. This clearly blacked outside. These are all buildings. And then we got to talking about, like, with an artist, you get what you pay for, And if you're getting a low page rate, they're probably going to rush. But if you got a really good artist, you'll get a lot of attention to detail like this. And so I'm going to just tell you right now, 100, you lucked out. Count your blessings. You lucked out, because he did a really good job. And then something else, and I don't mean to cut you off, but Alan, 100%. Tell this man, or am I lying? We have numerous discussions in the Secret Society admin chat about text and fonts and why you use certain ones. And when the word come right there, I don't know if I should say pause or not, but whatever. You know,
Some
y'all can write that joke.
judging.
Hey, get it how you get it how you live, man. We grown here. But
Yeah. So,
that's an example of, you know, like kind of like abnormal text and font done right, you know, and that's something that Alan can tell you.
sorry, he.
It's getting kind of late, and I know because you guys, it's about what
Like
shoot.
8:12, 8:15, almost.
Yeah, is that about the same for you too, Alan? Yeah, because I just don't want to hold you guys much longer. So we'll kind of speed through a little bit of the rest of it, unless you got something you really want to talk about. But also,
If you can shut off on the, if you shut off at the 2 hour mark, kind of, yeah, yeah, that'd be good.
Okay,
Just,
because okay, so we're getting closer to that. But one thing I also said, I like the use of colors in this, like those magentas, those violets, you know, stuff like that. And it's similar color schemes at points to what Alan has in his book. So
Okay, yeah, and there's a reason. Like, it's definitely supposed to be more. You know, you talking about magentas and all this. It's really supposed to be more reddish because that's, you know, you will see as we kind of go on and we get the explanation of like where he is and all that. But you know, and here's kind of this whole section, scene, whatever, is kind of like where a lot of the comedic relief takes place. You kind of kind of flex the comedy muscles a little bit. You know, yeah, so you keep going, keep skipping through it.
Yeah, definitely. Once again, definitely at this point, you've amped up the anime, the manga
100%.
influence a lot more.
100%. Yeah, so we've got our action at the beginning, you know, at page 6, we got, you know, now we're kind of it
Definitely
is
heavy manga right there.
Right, facts, 100%. Huge manga influence.
So
and
who was making this? One thing, question marks. Who was making the manga shift? Was that your script request, or was he, as the artist, was choosing where he think he should put it in?
I think we kind of are both. I didn't specify like I want the manga type comedic expressions. I think I was just like make him, you know, kind of have like a funny like sort of face, exasperate, whatever, like kind of face. And like since, like I said, his background is so manga heavy, he kind of naturally like went towards it. And once again, like I'm an anime nigga, and like I feel like I write my stories kind of like a manga or anime, like structurally. So it's like, you know, I feel like it fits. Some people don't like the manga influence, but I think it fits, especially for, you know.
Yeah, you make it work, like I said, and all these are things that
I would say the first time it was a bit jarring because I went into it as a superhero book, and then it slowly transformed into a manga book. So that's where it was, and I think with the pinprick was like the first, like the line started to blur, and then it went full. It started to go over,
like
so
almost like a gradient into it.
So, so first part is more comic book Western, and then the last part starts to fall into more anime style manga. But once you wrap your head around it, and I understood what was going on, I just kind of went with it, and that's it. Wasn't, you know, it's like what you're exposed to and what you understand. I was discussing with someone, and I said, well, the person was like, but then the book kind of changes, and they don't understand the story. I said, because you don't read manga. It shifted into a manga style, but those are things that are traditional manga tropes, or those are things that will happen in the manga if you do watch. So I could see things like Final Fantasy and those kind of references and that kind of stuff if you're into those kind of video games and that kind of thing. So I could see all that stuff. But if a person isn't exposed to some of that stuff, they will kind of be taken for a loop.
Yeah. And so for me, I don't mean to cut. Go ahead, Adam.
No, I was gonna say that makes sense. Perfect sense.
I mean, and you tell the people if I'm lying to you, Adam. I said kind of the same thing. Like I noticed that slow transition, you know, way back when you first brought it to me. I said, oh, okay, it's slowly going over, but it didn't disturb me because I watch so much. I don't read manga, but I watch a shit ton of. I don't read manga anymore, but I watch a shit ton of anime. And so, like a page like this, if you don't care for anime and manga, this is gonna look weird to you. But for me, I'm like, oh, okay. That's it. And then when I was done reading it, and you know, because you asked me to read it, I won't get into the details of why he initially asked me to read it, because that's a story in and of itself. It's also the reason. It's also part of the reason why I know Alan and a few other people.
Yes.
But you know, he did just especially say, "Hey man, could you read this?" I said, "Sure, no problem." And I said, "Heavy anime manga influence. It's pretty much your version of Invincible because of Josh's choices and coming into that level of power and things like, I don't know, for me, none of it really threw me off, but it did. It seems like as the book focused more on magic, as I sit and think about it, and I may have told you this before, but if I didn't, or if I did, I apologize for bringing it back up. As it focuses more into the magic, the manga amps up. But when it was just Ja as a traditional superhero, American Western style, and I don't know, maybe that's intent or maybe it was unintentional, but going forward, I would say, Adam, that's something you can run with.
Yeah.
That's something you could definitely run with, man.
I was, like
You
I
know.
said, wrote this with the intention of just hooking people, and then around that goal, I just pulled every fucking thing, any entertaining, like everything I could to kind of craft this roller coaster of a story. And it just, you know, the universe obviously I built out, but I'd say as far as magic goes, like this first arc is definitely going to be like it's definitely going to be like magic heavy. I'll tell you that much. But we can keep going. You know, more comedic. You know, timing, and it's slowing down a little bit. So this is a part of the book where I do kind of rest on, you know, kind of a little bit more comedy. Like the next
Yeah.
go up next page, the second panel of the page, where you
Kind
know
of also slows the pacing of the story a bit. It's not as hectic.
Yeah,
but we had it front loaded with action, so it's a little bit of a breather, because if you have too much action, it can be a bit much. You need to kind of ebb and flow. What I would say too, I do like the character creation of the creature. That's like a half hand with the demon teeth. Yeah, that was a really nice design. I really like that.
Thank you.
One thing, and like I said, I told you guys in the beginning of this, I wouldn't say anything in this video that I had not told Adam privately. Same thing private, same thing public. What I like is that there is very distinct character and character motivations, you know, and that is something me and Alan, man, Adam, if you only knew the amount of conversations that me, him, and our other two admins have had about this type of thing.
I read indies too. I know it. Like
Bro, if my damn S22 didn't cost so much, man, I'll throw that shit at the wall. But one thing, and I told you this, like every character has a clear motivation. Things are explained. And then just kind of teasing for the next issue, what I like is that you got better with issue 2. I'm just gonna tell you that you got better with issue 2. Like I said, I remember bringing up the copyright thing when first thing that I saw in issue 2, I was like, okay, he fixed that. You know, he's protecting himself and whatnot. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is I see you going on an upward progression. Like you're taking feedback, especially if it's valid, and implementing it as you can. So
1,000%. And just even with working with Kotodwe in general, I feel like and also Amari Morales too. He's another guy that I work with. Shout out to him. We're about to drop a like fantasy, I guess Afro fantasy, since black, you know, the main character is black. Afro fantasy, dragons, magic knights type comics. So be on the lookout for that. But him too, like working with Amari Morales, working with Lord Kotodwe, it's like I think, you know, they were also a noticeable step in like art quality, like working with these guys. So
yeah.
But just moving on, like this is, you know, Zill's background, you know, her backstory, so to speak, what she was on, why she's here, what happened to her,
Yeah, you did I wouldn't say that. I want to say
This was a really good. It was a really good part. This has
really good.
This makes up for the emotional part from the beginning, and so as it seemed. So like anything else, I could see as you go forward where you're getting better and where you kind of start to, you know, because we just get one of the things we should be doing is getting better, and I could see I could see where, you know, it takes these times to do dive and stuff, and you see the improvement even within the book, the pacing, different things like that. It's well done.
And I appreciate that. And like once again, like to your point, you know, the kind of back, like you don't have to go back, Ronald, but like the previous page with the girl running, being chased down, like that emotional kind of scene, and then back to like sorry, Ronald, if you can go back like 4 panels.
Just tell me when to stop.
Stop right here.
Right here.
No. Up one more. No, go. I mean, forward. One more forward.
I'm just gonna go back to the top of this page, and then I'm gonna go forward. And you say stop.
Go to the second panel of the next page.
Second panel of the next page. All right, that's the second panel of the
That
next page.
You have all that emotional stuff we just saw, and then you have this like kind of like little bits of comedy inserted in between too to kind of just keep shit light. Or in the next one, the next panel after this, more comedy. Like, yo, can you back up, please? Like, you know what I mean, shit like that. And then yeah, we can just keep going, but
and that kind of when you do stuff like that, it kind of keeps the character true. So I could see the character saying that because of the way how he was before. So you wouldn't expect a shift so quickly for him because this is who he is. He's still that arrogant, know it all, don't give a fuck kind of character who basically went to do something else and now he's sidetracked doing something. So he's like, okay, so why are you telling me all of this kind of thing? So it still is true to the character.
I like how you said how. Go ahead, Adam.
I was like, yeah, you're right. Like to your point, like he's still kind of not taking this seriously. Like he's, you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
I do like in the second issue where he does get a bit of he does have something happen to him, and there's that emotional impact. And when we do that second issue, it was actually, I think it was one of my favorite scenes in it, and a little bit of slight growth, but once again, kind of it's a lot of things I think you did right there, and it's in the second issue, and it is like that invincible influence, like.
And I'd say the second really rounds out his origin. It really kind of complete origin, right?
All right.
We keep going.
How many more pages do you think we got to? Because we are hitting that mark. Not that I mean I can go as long as we kind of need to, but I don't want to hold you guys because you guys are on
right.
Essentially, what would be East Coast time, both of you.
We can pretty much skip through these next few pages. Like this is just the reveal that, where are we? Oh, we're stuck in the sword. You're still in Area 51. I'm doing my best to puppeteer your body with my magic, but like the way your powers are set up, you're pretty much insulated. I cannot take over your body. I'm just kind of marionetting you a little bit to the best of my ability. You can honestly bust out of here anytime you want. And, she's kind of doing the big ask, hey, like, can you take me with you? Like, please. More, exposition in the following page.
And what's her name again?
Zila.
What? Say it again, because you're gonna.
Zila.
Okay.
Yeah. So she's, Ja's asking his questions like, oh, being suspicious, like, oh, you want this? She's kind of just giving more exposition on like herself and like the nature of the sword's curse. Keep going.
No. I was focusing on this just because, like, if you look here, they're doing a good job of like different expressions. There we go. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Even here, like you got her with this one, and then she's here. And that's something that you do a really good job at. Now, also, one thing I wish I could show you guys the cursor. Look at the narrative exposition. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are things that are done really well in this book, in my opinion.
And we're also starting to push here's like where we kind of go back to Strider. We're kind of pushing that forward. Like, what's going on with him? What happened to him? Like,
and a good way of using.
Why are we even focusing back on him right now?
A good way of using narrative exposition to explain that. Which,
True. Oh,
and the fact is, and if I remember correctly, they knew that would happen. That was something that the government knew.
They wanted to do this in a more controlled way, but they were prepared for this to happen. They didn't want him to just get the sword snatched from him. They had like procedures and offloading procedures and shit they were gonna do. But you know, they had to do what they had to do in the heat of the moment. And you know, back to Ja inside the sword. She's telling him, like, I just want to be out. I want to go see the world again. Then we kind of, all right, here's the thing. Like, Ja's like, oh, can you use your powers to help find my family? Like, oh shit. Like, you know, we're moving the plot along a little bit. She's like, yeah.
Well, getting back to one of the original things that you didn't forget that was why he got there in the first place. And that reminds me, once again, not to draw on, but like something that JB Smooth said that he talked about, like when doing certain jokes, like saying something and then wowing the audience later through a physical action, like, oh, he didn't forget about that. You know what I mean? Or kind of like Martin Lawrence was also good at it. Like especially if you look at the episode of Martin where he had the fake dog and they were mimicking New Jack City, which that's definitely before your time, Adam, but you need to go watch Martin. Great show. Ask your parents, or they say ask your auntie, your grandmama, and them. Martin, good show. But that, like I said, you did a good job of going back to things and not forgetting why they were there. And at no point in this book did I ever feel lost. You know, at no point was I ever like, oh, okay, what happened with this? What happened with that? Like, I think for me, you didn't just decide to get into this thing. You actually looked at like, okay, how do these mechanics work? You know, and that's that, like I said, especially when we get into issue 2, folks, you'll see where he got better. You know what I mean? And it's definitely an improvement, especially like when he was talking about Ja's, you know, character growth. You'll see that a little bit more, and you'll see him handle certain situations like a team, you know, and how there is an emotional impact with certain things. So I'm gonna go ahead and move forward. Real quick, guys, my pacing with the panels, has that been okay with you guys, or am I going too fast? But I'm trying to give the reader enough time to read them, see it. But let me know if you guys need me to speed up or slow down.
Oh yeah, I thought since we're short on time, I'm just kind of, you know, just covering like we're good. This is kind of like, all right, Terra Twins are officially in motion. Like this, you know, they're kind of having each other. Yeah, Terra Twins are activated. And you know, this next page is also like an underrated page in my opinion. But you know, we got Ja flying off. We got Thor with his hammer, you know.
And that's typical like superhero. Even actually, this is kind of where the book to me, even with magic, goes back to using superhero tools and less like manga tools.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it is like a Thor's hammer moment, you know, we are unified. And so as maybe you didn't even realize, like maybe subconsciously navigating those two streams, those two currents.
I think Invincible honestly showed me or demonstrated or just kind of jogged my memory or like kind of just like, hey, you can do this, by the way. Like, you know, or just in general, like Invincible, I feel like kind of got the crust out of my eyes a little bit and woke me up and reminded me like, yo, you can take your superhero world all over the place. Like you don't just have to do a standard thing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And then, like I said, if you guys watch Rob Comics Explained videos on Invincible, I was going to get rid of because I got some early issues of Invincible, like First Battle Beast, whatnot. I was going to get rid of them. But then last year I was doing some cleanup and I was watching the videos, and as I was watching and just listening to Rob talk about all of those little things that Robert Kirkman put into Invincible, some of those philosophical themes, you know, straw man arguments, you know, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, you know, asking and answering certain questions like, no, like we're not going to detain this person because they're going to get back out and do the same thing. So we're going to kill him. And, you know, what's his name? The one who's like the fucking android or whatever, he eventually gets like a human body. I can't, something like that. He starts off as an android robot thingy, and then he eventually later on in the series gets a human body. This is the comic.
Oh God! The professor kid.
Yeah, well, he becomes a kid, but him and the monster girl, they get trapped in another dimension.
Yeah.
And you know, Invincible having to deal with like taking that guy out and like what that means. Like there was a lot of stuff that Robert Kirkman addressed, but there's also one thing about Robert Kirkman is that like he has a definitive end for a lot of his stories. Like they're not meant to go on forever and ever. And then with the Invincible show, and this is something I learned about Robert Kirkman a while back, is that he has no problem going back, looking at his work and seeing what he did wrong and where he could fix things, you know. And some of what he did in the show isn't necessarily just race swapping for race swapping. It's changing a character because he's like, okay, you know what? I didn't add that many black characters. I didn't even actively think about it, you know, that type of thing. You know, so
even just like the order of events or like expounding on different things, like I really do like the way that because I ran through all 3 compendiums. I didn't get through like all of the extraneous like, you know, Invincible Universe stuff, but like I ran through like series, and I love how he's adapting that from how he's adapting the show from the comics and like changing things up. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's the advantage. That's the advantage because people look at Image as a major publisher, but they forget that the Image properties are creator owned, you know. And so having that level of control, I mean, that's why he was able to end The Walking Dead on like the comic at like issue, what is it, 194? That's the end of it. There's another writer. He likes stories that end. Brian K. Vaughan. He wrote Why the Last Man. He's like, I want these stories to end. And I think if there is one major fault of the big 2 is that characters go on forever and ever. We don't allow them to age because Marvel characters haven't aged since like 1983. Prior to that, they aged in real time. Like if you read early X-Men, like when Jean Grey dies, you'll see a birth date, a birth year, and a death year on her tombstone. She was like 25 or something like that. You know, so those characters did age, but you know, and I think it's one of the things that has come to screw up their stories. Like it's weird for someone my age to hear Captain America in a story talking about, I was asleep for the first 50 Super Bowls. No, the fuck you weren't. You woke up in 1964 before they ever did a Super Bowl. You were most assuredly awoke for them. And then certain themes now just don't translate the same. Like, do you know how much of like an Emperor Doom ain't that great of a story? But there's a lot of it that doesn't translate now. Tony Stark's origin doesn't completely translate. Storm, you know, black folks, we love Storm. I've got Storm toys and a big ass poster, 2 of them on my fucking wall. And there's part of Storm's origin that you can't even tell in the same level of detail anymore because those events don't even matter anymore. Like it was the Suez Canal bombing. Now they just say her parents, they were blown up in Egypt or some shit like that, or it was like a terrorist attack. But it's like, no, it was very specific. It was the Suez Canal bombing. That was a real life thing. You guys can go Google it. The Suez Canal bombing in Egypt. I think it was 61 or 62. Maybe it was like 64. It was between 61 and 65 where that actually happened. So these characters were at one point tied to real life things.
Yeah.
This is Black Conversation, and I can't even remember how we got to this.
They create a sliding scale. So you got characters like Punisher, where Vietnam was.
He was a Vietnam War vet.
Yeah, but
you're right. He's another one where it messes up his origin.
Right. So what it will tend to do now is keep tying it to as the further back of war that they could put him into, and then come forward. So it doesn't.
I'll tell you guys one, because then, like I said, you got a lot of Robert. That's how we got this. That Robert Kirkman and these guys don't have a problem ending a series. I'll tell you a show right now that it feels weird. Now, Adam, you're a bit younger. You're only 30, but I'm older than The Simpsons. I'm 3 years older than The Simpsons. I remember when Homer's origin, he was a high school student in the 70s. Now they're like, he was a teenager in the 90s. I'm like, it doesn't make sense. And there's other shows that follow a similar trajectory now because they've been going on so long. Family Guy is in that same boat. Bob's Burgers now is in the same boat. You know, you're from Baltimore. The Wire, to a degree, did that. Like after a couple, like the first 2 seasons, they stopped showing seasonal change, like fall, winter, spring, summer. They stopped showing that.
I didn't make it past season 1. I'll be honest.
I didn't watch The Wire. My sister watched The Wire, but I did some reading up on it, and it reached a point where, based on where their story was, and then just natural season change, they just stopped showing the seasons change. True. Because it was messing up, because like the story couldn't keep up with the passage of actual time.
Yeah.
But all right, let's go ahead. Yeah. We could be on that type of stuff, but that's a good conversation. Let's just keep going here.
Yeah, and
once again,
where we get redirect.
I was gonna say this is really good because like everything's good here, and this red means something. It means that shit's about to get bad, and that is something, that nuanced things that people take for granted, and these are things that I think you paid really good attention to, and you did a good job with.
1000%. And this is also like great example of like that simpatico, like how, you know, Kotodwe really brought, like, this is how I saw it, and he drew it exactly, like he really brought it to life. But you know, here's where we see, you know, that the focus on Jensen Strider wasn't just for like, you know, Zila to explain the nature of the curse or to demonstrate that. Like, yeah, okay, we're starting to see like him rise as, you know, an antagonist, as something big that Jaws need to beat up.
And Alan, like, you know, from our admin chats, like when we discuss text and font, how I say like when you change it, it's supposed to mean something.
Yeah, it has to be legible, and this is good. Yeah. This actually works. Yeah. I kind of get that this is his voice. It feels evil. You could kind of you could, and
this for people watching, like, this is why you do it. It does, whether you read a Dark Horse comic, a Marvel comic, an Image comic, DC, when they change the text, it's for stuff like this, you know, because the voices change. Like when I see this, first of all, I will say this: the way he's drawn, it is kind of reminiscent of like 1993. Like, go back and look at like some of the art from like 93, the way he's drawn. That's not a bad thing. That's just what it's reminiscent of. But like, I'm like Alan, like I can see him. Oh, I mean, my damn headphones are about to die, motherfuckers. All right, so we got to hurry this up a bit. But anyway, like I agree with Alan. Like, you feel like he's talking evil. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not just done because, oh, this is cool. Like, no, this is how you properly use that tool in that toolbox.
Yeah, you high-level enemy, but without the restraint. You can kind of tell that by the fight. Anyway, whatever. Yeah, so we kind of, you know, oh, buddy, he's still in there. He's, you know.
Yeah, once again, another good use there about how the text changes.
Right.
So.
And you get, you know, villain, like kind of antagonist rising. What's his motivation? What does he want? Well, he wants the sword. Where's the sword? Yeah. Oh, Ja has the sword. He took it from you. You know, and he's kind of newly like transformed. He's kind of like on crash out mode right now. So we get that. You know, if you're kind of sympathetic for this, you know, Marine guy, you're like, shit, like you're kind of, oh God, like what's gonna happen to these guys? Like, this isn't great. Ja's gone. Like, yeah. And then you kind of
great splash page right there.
Right.
Definite what is it? ASM 132, first Punisher feel to it, kind of.
I wasn't thinking about that. I was just like, I want to bring the reader. If you go back a little bit, I wanted to kind of bring the reader into like these soldiers' shoes a little bit, see what he's seeing, and like this, how terrible sight this would be, right? To have this thing leaping at you, your bullets ain't. And, last page I think is also good for like, not hooking the reader, but just kind of keeping them like interested and like engaged and anticipating the next issue. Like, oh shit, you see, he just launched off into the sky. He's a lot more powerful now. Like he's after Ja. What's gonna happen? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what you've done, because you created such a powerful hero, you have to create a powerful villain. So what you've done is kind of level up, because if not, the reader's gonna be like, yeah, this is no fight. He doesn't stand a chance. So when you create a villain like that, it's a very good move. Yeah, you have to
power up the villain. Yeah, and that's something that I don't know if you saw, Adam. I was on a BCL podcast with Herschel, and we were talking about Storm, and being an X-Men fan, like just most X-Men characters in general outside of Wolverine can't sustain a book long term. And one of the things that goes into helping a character sustain a book is a villain. Like Flash has an entire museum dedicated to his rogues. And if you do not have at least one villain that could match a character in power, it becomes a struggle. Like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have struggled with that. Transformers at times have struggled with that because once you stop Megatron and the Decepticons, like what do? Like you spent the entire series, and trust me, go back and watch Transformers, the 80s Transformers, even Transformers Prime. What do you do after that? You know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like they had maybe 3, but like the focus was so much on Shredder and the Foot Clan. I mean, and maybe there's some TMNT fans that watch it that can give me more. I know they got like the Rat King and a few others, but like Shredder and the Foot Clan and Krang were like their major things. I forget what the Krang is actually called, but like once you take out Shredder, it's like, okay, you just lost one of your major pillars. And I think to a degree, Superman suffers with that. Like,
yes,
yeah, but like when you,
that's like that's definitely like one of the challenges when, especially like when we're getting started, like we're thinking, you know, I don't know why I pluralize myself, but like it's just like, yeah, I'm creating a Superman level character, right? Who's he gonna go against? Like, you know, we kind of gave you some action at the beginning of issue number 1. He's slapping around some soldiers, but it's like that's not a real challenge to him. Like I said, on the first page, the footnote, there's no man-made weapons that can really affect him, right? But so it's like we have two. I came up with 2 answers to this challenge, this obstacle, which is number 1, kind of what you and Alan are talking about, which is like you need to come up with a villain that's, we power up Jensen Strider, right? Now Jensen Strider is like super powered. He's about to go after Ja. Like that's something big he can knock around for an issue. And then generally, I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, but fuck it. Like he's going to be going up against, number 1, first solution is he's going to be going up against gods. He's going to be going into godly realms and going up gods, right? Big things that like can actually fuck him up and can damage him. The second solution, so to speak, is the narrative, especially after issue number 5, is going to deviate from Ja. It's going to split off from Ja. Like, so we're going to follow Ja while he's off in these fantastical realms, but it's also like the other half of the issue is going to go back to Earth on the street level. You know, we're working on issue number 3 right now, where I hope fuck it, spoiler or not, where, a lot more heroes are getting introduced. A lot more like street level guys are going to start getting into play. And
and that can help spread out your story. And it can also help you avoid having like the villain of the week type of thing. And it'll help you spread exposition. I mean, once again, you watch anime, and in a 12-issue thing, they have no problem like episode 5, or like let's say episode 4 introducing a character, then episode 10 explaining that character's backstory or the other characters, just to spread things out and to balance the story, And so I think personally, and this, like I said, with this is what I was saying, like with Stormlight, if you don't have a villain that can match you, then why do I care? Why do I care? Where is the challenge? Like, and I said this on the podcast with Herschel, like, it's like the Han Solo movie. That movie wasn't as interesting because, one, I know there's only so much you can do to Han Solo because I know when Han Solo dies. I know when Han Solo was first introduced, he only has but so many injuries, if he had any at all. So it's not like you could hit him in the head with a lightsaber and leave a scar across his face. You can't do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it made his ancillary characters more interesting. I wanted to learn more about them than I did him because I already know what happens to him. And that's like Wolverine was able to sustain because he had a mysterious background, but he also had villains that could push him, and you need to, like, when it comes to rogues galleries, hands down, I don't care what area of comics you go into, nobody has a better rogues gallery than Batman. Spider-Man is a close second. Like, then after that, everybody is a distant third. Everybody.
Yeah.
But those two characters have probably the singular best rogues gallery. And a lot of Batman's villains, like Joker is a decent hand-to-hand combatant, but Joker pushes Batman. Joker's like, I need you. I don't want to kill you. I'd rather break you. I need you. You make my world go round. Watching you watch your beloved city burn in chaos sets me, it touches my nipples. You know what I mean? It tingles my fancy. You look at like Poison Ivy. Some of these are people that in a hand-to-hand fight, Batman could easily like whoop their ass, you know.
Right.
And a lot of them are not leaps and bounds more powerful than him. But what they do well, they do it damn well. Scarecrow, you know, even what is it? Even Scarface, the little fucking puppet, Killer Croc, like, and the thing is, none of Batman's villains are actually scared of him. Regular dudes are scared of him. You know those 100 dudes that say they can go fight the gorilla? Well, Batman's the gorilla. Y'all are scared of Batman. Y'all are scared of Batman. But Batman's actual rogues gallery, they get him. They're not scared of him, but they will push him. I think Superman suffers from that a bit. Like he has the advantage of having had villains that have been around a long time, but most of his villains can't really push him. Darkseid and Lex Luthor. Think about that. You know, Parasite, okay, maybe. Livewire, maybe, you know, to a degree, you know, but nothing like what Batman has. You look at Spider-Man, you know, Norman Osborn alone. I mean, Wilson Fisk, who really is more of a Daredevil villain at this point for most of his publication history, but even he can go at Spider-Man. You know, you got the Sinister Six, you know, who else? I know it's some others that I'm missing, but like they can push him. They can put him in situations where he has to make a story element that I like, that I think some indies it would be hard to do. Sadistic choice. You know, who do you pick? Either you pick this person or that person. You know what I mean? Kind of, and you see some sadistic choice in the new Mission Impossible movie, not to like a rated R degree, but just enough, you know, like, and it's things like that that a rogues gallery does. So it's not just, okay, well, we're going to create all these villains, but what do they specialize in? How are they affecting the hero? That's probably one of the reasons why, and we'll end it soon because there will be a sequel, guys, because this chat's going almost as long as Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. Legend of Korra, Avatar, The Legend of Korra. That is why I like it more than I liked Avatar, The Last Airbender. Why is that? Because each bad guy pushed Korra in a different way. Like, by the time you get to season 3, she's full-blown suffering from PTSD.
Right.
Like, go back and watch. Like, each one of those people, each one of them affected her in a different way. Like, the first guy she fought would have beat her. The only thing that saved her that she had not learned how to airbend. So he couldn't lock away an ability she had not learned how to do yet. But if it wasn't for that, if she had learned it, he'd have locked all that shit away. She'd lost. Her uncle in season 2 became a freaking god, and that messed up her head. Yeah. And then you also see the effect of that. And that's another thing. A good rogues gallery can affect the hero. It either breaks the hero, like Bane broke Batman. It forces you to realize things about yourself, like when Bane told Batman no mask, and Bane took off his mask, and Batman put his on, and you're like, oh shit, Bruce Wayne is the disguise, Batman is the real person. You know what I mean? So things like that. With that being said, gentlemen, I'm actually glad I didn't do my other two because I'll go ahead and tease them. It was I was going to ask you guys about race swapping and recasting, but that's something we could save for the next. Yeah, the look on y'all faces, that's like, oh nigga, really?
It's
Bro,
Yeah,
that'd
we
have
can
been
do it.
almost. That'd have
We
been
can
the
do it next
whole
week.
show. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'll get back with you guys. We'll talk about it off camera. But
Cool.
hey, guys, thank you. Great show. Thank you for hanging out. Whatever. Great conversation, man. Look forward to going into issue number 2.
Yeah.
Let me see
And
here.
do you have a Global Comics membership?
No, I don't.
Okay, so when we do it, I'll make sure to kind of take off the paywall that like only Global Comics members can access. So when we kind of do this again, you'll be able to stream through
We'll
it.
we'll talk about it outside. But
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and end this. Adam, and Alan, stay on with me a little bit, and we'll see you guys later.
Awesome. Appreciate it.